Now, when an audit is done on change control, not the actual change a person makes, but on the process of doing the change control, the auditor should not only ensure that the controls are in place, but they should also evaluate some of the following items. Number one, is there security for the program libraries? Is there the presence of supervisory reviews? Can you find that they follow an approved and documented change request pattern or setup or system? Have the impact of potential changes been assessed? Do they have standardized documentation for change requests? And is researching past change requests there as a part of their standardization? Now, this process of a change request sounds lengthy to a lot of people, especially if you come from a very small facility that has a handful of people that work there and you're the IT department. A lot of times people will say, when I see those folks and they're talking about auditing, and they're like, wow, how did they ever get anything done with those change requests? I mean, if something goes down, how do we generate the paperwork and do all that? Okay, not all change requests can wait for that process, obviously. And we call those and classify them as emergency changes. There are going to be times when a problem can be so critical that it causes a network outage and it has to be addressed immediately. Now, in the realm of the service provider, I can tell you that any network outage is hit immediately. And I don't mean just, they start, they make some phone calls. I mean, if I'm teaching a class and somebody gets an email or a text that there's an outage, they have tuned me out. They've already created a VPN into the network. They're already on a conference call. They're working on it immediately because, let's face it, as a service provider, you have those service level agreements that are talking about the 5 nines of uptime. And if you don't keep those 5 nines of uptime, you're losing money on your contracts. So, or you're giving money back. Those are good motivations, right? Anyway, those are emergency changes. Now, in those cases, you often need a special login to be able to build and deploy an emergency change. And let's take the look again of the internet service providers. Let's say it's an issue with a router. Well, many of the folks that can connect to a router can do what we would call show commands. Look at the state of the configuration, look at the statistics, the counters, the alarms, but they don't have the sufficient privileges to make changes. Because, again, we don't want just anybody to go in there and make a change. But they may have special credentials, usernames and passwords they can use that have those permissions so they can make that emergency change. And of course, you should have follow-up interviews. They should be done after the fact, after the outage is fixed, or what classified as an emergency. And then the results of that review can be documented and basically put into the normal change management and retroactively applied as though you did all that before you made the change. But either way, you've got the documentation. Now, there is a chance that you might find unauthorized changes. In fact, an unauthorized change could have been done legitimately to fix a problem, but unauthorized because somebody didn't go through the change control process. And I worked with a corporation that had a very strict policy. If you don't get approval on change controls outside of emergencies, that's the last thing you did for the company. Very serious about it. So there are many reasons that an unauthorized change can occur. It could be when a programmer has access to the production libraries, if it's a system type of change. And that's where we said, right, part of this is that you should have those libraries secured. Another unauthorized change is, having no formal change request policy or not having any policy even established. Maybe you don't have the appropriate management officials signing off on the change, or the change might not have been properly reviewed. It could be malicious. The programmer may have put an extra code for personal benefit, what we like to call a backdoor into the system. Or it might be changes from a vendor that have been pushed out but didn't go through your approval process. Now, many organizations have a configuration management system that's in place to be able to monitor and approve changes. Now, those systems, all of your maintenance requests are going to be documented and approved by the change control group. As a matter of fact, these systems are the ones where when somebody reports a problem and I input that information, it generates the trouble ticket. And it can, depending on the functionality, figure out the appropriate management groups and people to be able to notify to get this process running. And they have to sign in and electronically approve and review and all that sort of stuff. It's really cool. That means it employs checkpoints, reviews, and sign-off procedures. It can, these change management systems will often have a check-in and a check-out. So if you make a program change, obviously you checked it out to modify it, and when you checked it in, it's got a new version number, so it keeps track of all of that information. Many of your configuration management systems will automate what was a manual process for change control. The automated support is applied to things like identifying items that are affected by the change, recording configuration items that were affected by an authorized change, the implementation of changes in accordance with your authorization records, recording of your baselines that can be related to the releases, especially important if the change was bad and you need to roll back, and of course to prepare the release so as to avoid human errors in the information that's being released.